Today I'm talking about the Arizona language development approach and how it differs from some of the other states. In the state of Arizona, a English learner is defined as a student who does not speak English, or not a native speaker of English that's capable of ordinary classroom instruction in English. So you actually go through the process of entering them in as an EL. The demographic is a hard number to actually nail down because if you go back, it looks like the numbers we're seeing right now are primarily counts that were done in 2018 to 2019 by New America. Their reporting actually on that one shows about 103,318 students at that time that were English learners, about 9.2%. But the actual number is pretty difficult to identify because of the growth that's taken place in there. Later studies by New America and some other sort and the Migration Policy Institute actually put the great growth of EL learners at about 4% since that report came out. While the overall population in Arizona had grown at about 1.2%, although the latest numbers actually show a slight decrease in the number of enrollments. SEI in Arizona requires 120 minutes of EL instruction every day for K through 6 students, 100 minutes a day for 7th through 12th grade students. The instruction must meet their English language proficiency standards. It has to focus on speaking and reading and writing, and all the materials must be presented to them directly in English. If they're going to be doing the 50-50 model, which is more of a structured immersion, that's going to be a little bit different. It has to have the parent write or opt into it. And is also very controversial as I'm going through the research, or a lot of the videos right now are talking about the fact that that might be in flux as we go forward. Structured versus sheltered. The structured is going to be really you have to do their teaching in English. That everything is kind of keeps, especially this is more of the mainstream approach where you keep them in the classroom and you're just very intensive with the language and making sure that you're front loading language to make sure that they're capable as they're going through the process. Sheltered, on the other hand, is actually going to have them working in smaller groups with students in their native language, where they're trying to master the content and the academic skills, utilizing their language frequently in the 50-50 type of situation. As you're going through the Arizona's approach to language development, it puts an onus on everybody that's involved in the process. That everybody has to play a role, making sure that our students reach their full success. We're going to really try to play on their culture a little bit, make sure that whenever possible, we're relating back to what they know, trying to help them build some confidence as they're going through, and just giving them as much of a push as we can to go in the right direction. We're going to have all of our instructions are going to be integrated, where we're going to fit it together with their language and their approaches, but also with the disciplinary or interdisciplinary language that we tend to use as we're doing history. If you're teaching history, you have a sort of common language that you're going through. But if you're doing an 8th grade history class, you need to use the very, very explicit language that you would use when teaching 8th grade history, because we have a specific vocabulary we utilize to get to the standards that we have. And then you need to make sure that your assessments are clear and that they're actually testing whether learning is taking place and that it's actually moving for students forward in the process. Students have to buy in. This is a class where I had a combination of Spanish speaking and Japanese speaking students who were brand new. Some of them had very, very little English training in Japan. Others had a little bit more. And they were actually working on a specific program here where they were documenting some stuff that we had been doing around the campus. If they're not bought in, they're not going to really come alongside and learn the way they'd like to. You have to give them as much flexibility as possible to kind of choose topics and directions that we're going to take in class, within the framework of still making sure that they master their English proficiency. In the Arizona SEI models, they're going to have the newcomer model, which is somebody who's a brand new arrival from another country and brand new immigrant or refugee. In my case, it was always students. It was students who were coming in for usually a 1 to 2 year process of immersion to make sure that they got as much English as possible. They actually didn't want to speak their language as much as possible in class, so we were very, very much in the classroom setup and using the structured approach. Um, Pull-out students are going to be a little different. They're actually taken out for a certain time every day to make sure, usually on a 504 plan, to make sure that they're getting, or not a 504, but an IEP that's making sure that they're getting what they need language-wise with an ESL specialist. Um, they'll work with small groups or individually. The 2 hours are actually be, 2 hours going out and spending on very, intensive English language proficiency activities. The 50/50 is actually one where parents have to sign into it, and it's very actually kind of it seems to be fairly controversial over there, with the state superintendent saying he wants to get rid of it completely. But this is actually just taking them out and doing 50/50, half their native language and half in their in English. Um, there's going to be benefits and side effects to that as you go forward. The Azella training, I'm gonna be honest, this one's harder because as I'm going through it, when you go onto the Azella website, it tends to run you through a certain set of loops as you're going through it. Students are tested though on their listening, their speaking, and their writing. On their proficiency as you're going through, and then they're going to be grouped according to the levels that they actually reach. The levels on here range from the very beginning all the way down through some mastery and some proficiency, with basic being your middle of the road there. There's the actual Azella proficiency standards, as you go through, can be applied to a variety of different activities that you're doing inside of a classroom. And there's a rubric that you can utilize that helps you kind of get an idea of where they're at and what levels they're falling at according to that chart. Um, Standard accommodations when you're doing the Azella testing, students can be tested more on one-on-one or small groups. Students can have wear noise buffers when they're in the actual process. If they're doing the computer aided or the paper testing, they can actually have ear or noise buffers to make sure that they're not getting overwhelmed by sound. But that has to be after the instruction's been done. They can have instructions reread to them if they've missed something. And students then can be also provided with frequent breaks to just let their brain rest a little bit and get back into the process. I know with my students, I tend to talk pretty fast. So I had to at times give them time to catch their brain up just a little bit as we went through things. The rights of parents regarding EL services. Parents have the right to translation services at any point, both in written form, in the documentation, and also in meetings. We can't just ask somebody to come in and interpret. We have to make sure that there's actually qualified translation individuals there that are there for that process. Parents have the right to request special education or review. I missed a word right there. Review at any time. If they ever are concerned that there might be a possibility of that, they can do that. And we aren't allowed to say no. And they have the right also to opt out of a 50/50 immersion plan or any EL services as they wish, if they choose to not avail themselves of that. It just might have an effect on the overall performance of their child in the long run. Um, the whole process is supposed to be geared to making sure that our students get success, that they don't feel completely stymied through the process, and that ultimately they not only do they graduate, but they actually succeed as they leave our systems, and move forward. My These are my references here as I went through and did the pages and did the work on this, and one more page there. But that's my summary of the Arizona's language development approach. Thank you.